Chapter 40. Sam popped out of the nothingness, standing in the middle of a crowd of angels and ascended beings. But more importantly, he was standing directly in front of Sophia. There was an eerie calm amongst everyone in the group. He looked around at all of the new faces, with very little concern as to who they were. After a second or two of looking at all of them dead square in the eyes, he turned his gaze back to Sophia. He exhaled deeply and lowered his head as a tear came from his eye. Such a small and insignificant thing as a single tear can seldom be noticed by anyone, but today there was not a single person, angel, or otherwise that did not see that tear well up in his eye, stream down his cheek, and fall to the ground. This was the moment that defined him as a god to everyone standing around him. Sophia knew the struggle that raged inside of him. She knew that all he ever wanted to do was the right thing. She saw the turmoil on his face and the difficulty he was having justifying what he was about to do. She took a step forward and reached out her hand to his. "It's okay, Sam. I know. I'm ready." With another deep inhale and exhale, Sam and Sophia disappeared. Victor, surprised by what just happened, screamed, "No!" They would appear again high in the atmosphere, above the battle that was raging between Lucifer, Muriel, and Tenon. Great discharges of energy and furious blows flew back and forth between the combatants that disrupted the pressure in the air, causing it to ebb and flow like the tide on the shore. "I don't know how this works," Sophia apologized. "All you have to do is touch him and keep contact with him as long as you can. We'll take care of the rest. But be ready. This is going to happen fast," explained Sam. Below, Muriel noticed Sam and Sophia floating above the aerial battlefield. This was the only clue that she would need. While she had no idea what Sam's plan was or who this other person was, she knew enough to know that Sam had decided to act. She looked at Tenon with a nod. They both assaulted the anger-fueled angel. Tenon grabbed his attention by raining down on him with a barrage of strikes that would keep Lucifer's attention on him. Muriel seized the opportunity to slip up behind him, latching onto Lucifer with all of her might. She let out the most feverish roar of exertion. Sam and Sophia teleported from above the fight and reappeared within arm's reach of the battle. Sophia did not hesitate. She did not waver. She did as her god commanded. Her touch paralyzed Lucifer instantly. The red glow that radiated from his wings and the light that shined from his eyes dulled as though they were being sucked inward. But by stark contrast, Sophia's body ignited in a staggeringly bright white glow. A hellish scream of pure agony screeched from the bottom of her lungs as she fulfilled her duty as the Harbinger. Every soul that Lucifer had gained from his deadly sins and savage attacks funneled its way out of his body and into the body of Sophia. The impressive transfer process was difficult for the trio to watch due to the extreme surges of energy that exploded outwards. And within a few seconds, it was over. The tormented angel that had brought such misery to the people of this planet was visibly weakened and fell from the sky like a limp rag doll. Sophia, on the other hand, could not contain what she had just consumed. A mere mortal that had only received her gift less than an hour ago was filled with more than 1 billion souls. She thrashed and flailed about, wrestling with herself, letting out another heart-wrenching scream. Ismail was able to sense what was happening and blasted his way towards the scene. "Sam," he barked over the ear-piercing crackle of that much power that was scorching the air that surrounded her. "She will not be able to contain it much longer. If she loses control here, it could rip the atmosphere to shreds. Get her out of here. Sam made a face that struck a stark resemblance to Malice's. Where was he supposed to take her? How do you stop a person from losing it and tearing the atmosphere off of the planet? There was only one thing he could think of. He needed to swallow his disgust of this entire situation and do what needed to be done. He teleported close enough to grab her, and then they both disappeared in an instant. They would reappear in the most peculiar of places. It was not in the mountains or the plains. They did not exit Sam's teleport over the ocean or deep in the jungle. They didn't even reappear on this planet. Instead, they would pop out over 238,000 miles from the surface of the Earth. Sam brought Sophia to the moon, and there she lost control. She wrapped her arms around her midsection, trying to hold it in with all of her might. Sophia fought to keep it contained. Even in her severe suffering, she wanted to serve her God to the best of her ability. From behind her flaming eyes, she looked at Sam, silently begging for permission to let this suffering go. He placed his hands on the side of her face and put his forehead to hers. It's okay. I'm here with you. You can let it go. I will stay with you. The entire moon vibrated violently as the colossal force of over 1 billion souls left from her body in an explosion that would blow the dust from the surface of the moon and bring it to the brink of its structural integrity. Chunks of rock the size of skyscrapers were fractured from the crust of the celestial body. The wave from the blast traveled so fast that it disrupted the orbit of the satellites and pushed away the clouds that covered the northern hemisphere of the Earth below. Billions of people saw the spherical shockwave and felt its pressure, including everyone at the site of the massive battle. In that explosion, Sophia would lose her life. And so would Sam. Chapter 41. Rest. Death brought Malice and Sam face to face again. They would stand atop the mountain range with the beautiful view of a setting sun as their backdrop. Neither of them spoke to the other. Malice did not goad or chide his counterpart. He stood quietly and patiently. Sam held his composure as long as possible, but ultimately he would succumb to the gravity of the events that brought them here. His decision to take Sophia and use her as a tool was the hardest he had ever had to make. He took his understanding of justice and trampled it into the barren surface of the dust-covered moon. He pushed the heels of his hands into his eyes and began to sob uncontrollably. It took such a toll on him that he became weak in the knees and lost his balance. And as he fell, he experienced something entirely new. Malice would catch him and show him comfort in a tender, consoling embrace. I had to, he sobbed. There wasn't any other way. Malice did not need an explanation. He watched the entire sequence of events through Sam's eyes. Had the shoe been on the other foot, Malice did not know that he would have been able to do the same thing. Sophia's actions in the maze left a deep impression on them both. Malice hated everyone. Everyone but the woman that showed him the most kindness. Everyone but the woman that they just had to kill. Sam was proving to be stronger than the monster had ever imagined.
Rest, Sam. I will take her back to her family.
Chapter 42. A Will Beyond Comprehension. Turn your face towards the sun, and the shadows will fall behind you. A Maori proverb. From the cold embrace of death, Sam and Malice ascended for the fourth time. On Earth, Cain, who was still guarding the flower, watched as the fourth petal wilted to black ash and fell from it. An immediate surge of power flowed through Cain and the remaining members of the Ruiz family. Back on the surface of the moon, Sam's body began to reanimate. Similar to the first two ascensions, Malice was in control, but this time, he didn't have to force his way in. Sam willingly placed his faith in the demon. The new essence that poured through his cells accumulated in his core and changed his body. Like it did with each petal, the god would be granted a vast overload of power for a short period of time. Malice peeled himself from the cold rock and floated above its surface. From his back, massive boils of slime and light grew until they erupted through his skin. The black sludge twisted and wrapped itself around the golden light, forming into the shape of enormous wings. A brilliant light formed behind him that was several feet in diameter. Its glow was astonishing and could be seen from the earth. The consciousness returned to Malice, and his swelling of energy forced its way out from him in an uncontrollable expansion. The waves of his raw essence looked like the fields of a magnet as they whipped away from his newly converted body and sliced their way into the deepest layers of the moon. His voice erupted in a devastating howl that was partnered with a final burst of his will expanding outward. It was this final blast that dealt a devastating blow and broke the moon in half. Through the flying chunks of rock and dust that hovered in the minuscule gravity of the giant halves of the now split moon, Malice extended his hand. Using nothing but the force of his will, he summoned each piece of Sophia's body, shifting her atoms to reassemble. Muscle, skin, and bone sewed itself back together, and upon assembly, Malice floated her dead body into his arms, allowing only a single tear to escape from his blistering white eyes. They sucked backward into the vortex of a teleportation and reappeared in the sky above the other angels, Ismail and the Ruiz family. Slowly, he floated down, wings spread and light radiating out from behind him, and in his arms, Victor saw the body of Sophia. "No," he said quietly as a quiver overtook his chin. "No, no, 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 no." Malice touched down before him and lay her body at his feet. Victor fell to his knees and grabbed her, rocking back and forth. Giulietta and Isabella began to scream for their mother, and they too ran towards her. The silence was devastating, and only the sound of misery and loss filled the air. A few moments passed. The hallowed cries turned into light murmurs. The angels stared in amazement at the god that stood before them. Never had any of them seen a god with wings. The strength of his will was baffling to them. It was a disturbing sight indeed, but what happened next shocked them all. Malice took to one knee and lowered his head to Victor and the girls. And for the first time in the history of the universe, a demon bowed before a man.
She accepted this path. It ended quickly, and she did not suffer long. I could not save her. but I can see to it that she did not die in vain. This level of power will not last for long, but for the time being, human, it is yours to command. What would you have me do?
Victor raised his head and looked at the monster with bloodshot and tear-filled eyes. Make sure that bastard feels the pain of every soul he took. I want him to suffer. But before he dies, you bring him to me. I want to see that asshole's face in the dirt. Malice looked Victor in the eye and smirked a bit. God or not, he recognized the hatred surging in Victor. He had every intention of crushing Lucifer, and now he possessed the ability to do it. But getting to embarrass and humiliate him first was definitely going to be a bonus. Up from bended knee, the mighty Malice stood and stretched his wings, while the ring behind him grew brighter. Looking at the angels that stood before him with a stare as cold as ice, he said,
This is the face of sacrifice. She gave all and asked for nothing in return. She deserves your respect, and her family requires your honor. Do this, not because I command it, but because it is the right thing to do.
With a thunderous crack, Malice disappeared. Ismail was the first to move. He walked up behind Victor and placed both hands on his shoulders. Every angel understood what this meant. As the Sharuin had done the day that Muriel died fighting Ra, they honored Sophia. Each put their hands on Ismail's shoulder, or on the shoulder of the angel in front of them. Wei Jin, Michael, Gabriel, and even Cain followed suit. This ritual could not take away the pain or bring Sophia back to life. But this group of ascended beings showed respect to the Ruiz family in a way that had never been done before on this planet. The energy and solemn intent that flowed from their souls was enough to bring warmth and comfort to Victor, Julieta, and Isabella.